Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever it might be in this fine world. You are listening to the Startup Selling Show, talking sales with Scott Sambucci. That's me. Today's episode is a guest episode, and today's guest is Brandon Bornancin. Brandon is the founder of Seamless.ai, and he's also a #1 best-selling author of 3 books, a serial sales person who sold over $100 million in products and sales. He's an 8-figure entrepreneur twice over, and the inventor of Seamless.ai, and a motivational speaker who is absolutely obsessed with helping you maximize your personal success. I've been following Brandon and his story over Seamless.ai over the last almost 10 years since he first founded the company, seeing his videos on LinkedIn years ago, following his posts, being on his newsletter. And I can tell you over the past 10 years, Brandon has built a huge following of salespeople and entrepreneurs that's now reached into the millions. And by selling hundreds of thousands of copies of his books and popularizing the concept of sales lists, he founded the company Seamless.ai, which we're going to talk a little bit about here in our episode. So as you start to listen to Brandon, if you've not come across him or his work before, you will quickly hear his energy, his enthusiasm. He is effusive with his desire to help people and help salespeople grow and scale and impact their lives every single day. He's on a mission to impact positively over 1 billion people and help the world connect with opportunity. He does what he calls whatever it takes to maximize your success. And if you're an individual salesperson, grow to over $1 million in sales. And if you're a founder or if you're a sales leader, do even more than that with your company. So big introduction for somebody who's highly accomplished in the tech world and in the sales world. And so in the course of our conversation, a couple of things that we want to listen to is #1, spend some time with him at the start of our conversation before we started talking about Seamless and Outbound and the importance of list building. We talked quite a bit about his journey as a founder. How did he start Seamless.ai? How did he walk through those first 10 customers, those first 100 customers? How did he choose his early target market to go after, to get that first revenue, to get those first customers, to validate the product, to create a viable company? And then more so, when did he decide to make a pivot away from his original market to a brand new series of markets that he serves right now, which is mostly B2B SaaS companies? Brandon talked about the importance of building and running that sales process on your own. In fact, in our conversation, he talked about what he called a 777 framework for running sales calls. There was a point in time where he was running up to 20 product demos a day himself, 30 minutes long. And he talked exactly about how that happened, how he ran them, how he built the selling system that it took to have predictable conversion rates so that he could get sales help and really start to scale his company and make the impact that he's out to make today. Some other things that we talked about around specifically on Outbound is the importance of targeting and list building, understanding your ICP. We talked about how important it is to use Outbound as a way to reach your target customers. I know many people out there have a certain feeling about Outbound, that they might not want to do it, or they feel like it's spammy, or they feel like it's not the way that they want to grow their business because they want to do inbound or PLG or something else. Brandon and I are both big believers in Outbound because it's one of the best, if not the best way to go find the people that you set out to help in the first place. So Brandon evangelized about that for a little while as well. And then we talked about some very specific tactical tips about how to set up your targeting, how to set up your sequences, how to include a very human approach to your outbound. So it's not just load up emails, load up a list and start batching and blasting, but in fact, creating human connections, personal connections through values and what he calls deposits in the relationship that you're building with your future customers. So lots of ground that we covered. Really excited to have had Brandon on the show just now. I think you're going to really love this episode as a founder, as an entrepreneur, and also if you're both a founder and entrepreneur, as a salesperson to understand what it takes to sell your product. And then, of course, as a leader to then start building the sales team around you. So that's it for now. Let's head over to my conversation with Brandon. Brandon, hello. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Scott. Thank you so much for having me. Honored to be here today.
Well, we're honored to have you, man. You're quite an accomplished entrepreneur, salesperson, and now not even beyond just an entrepreneur and a salesperson. Now you're impacting millions of people every day with your books and your speaking and your podcast and everything else you're doing. Now, of course, we've already done a longer introduction about you and all of the great work you've done over the years. But I like to start with every guest. It's hey, Brandon, when people ask you, what do you do? How do you answer that question?
I first like to say I'm an expert at failure. I've probably failed 1,000 times more than anything that you've read or seen about any of my accomplishments. But what I do, I wrote a book called Whatever It Takes, and I am like the chief whatever it takes officer at Seamless. So whether it's helping us serve and maximize the success of our customers, of our employees, of our users, I do whatever it takes to help anyone that follows us or engages with our inner circle of software or brand or company or employees get to the next level in sales, in income, in revenue, in time, in money, in freedom, in health and wealth, really all aspects of your life. I know we sell a sales software to help you generate more leads, appointments, and sales faster than ever before. But I truly believe for you to maximize sales, you need to maximize your wealth, your health, your life, your business, your personal. So I believe in going like all in and doing whatever it takes for the success of our employees and our roughly million salespeople that we serve with our software.
No, that's great, man. Like your energy is effusive. And I remember seeing some early videos that you were posting on LinkedIn probably 5 or 6 years ago, where you're there at Seamless headquarters and you had the team around you. And it was just like this real-time view of what was happening in your business every single day. And that effusiveness and that energy and that enthusiasm, it was just like you could feel it coming through that video that you were sharing. And it was like, even back then, you could tell like the way you're impacting people wasn't just, hey, I'm out here promoting Seamless. To me, it felt like you just wanted people to watch that video and feel better and be motivated and want to be able to take a certain action.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that, Scott. And shit, back then, it was probably 8 of us working out of my townhome, my HOA trying to kick us out of the townhome because you're not allowed to have people working in the damn townhome. Yeah, it was weird. I don't know why I decided to start documenting the journey, but I just thought starting the company, if we documented everything, one day us or anyone we know would want to look back and what could they learn from it? The good, the bad, the ugly, so that they could do it smarter, better, faster. I believe that, with my other book, not Whatever It Takes, but Sales Secrets. With Sales Secrets, I believe that success leaves secrets. So I like documenting and sharing, the secrets that we learned for success, the secrets that, you interview a ton of experts. I've gained so many secrets from interviewing experts on how did they go from where they're at today to where they want to go in the future. And then I just go and I take those secrets and I do what they tell me to do. And that's where I think that documenting of the startup journey from, my LinkedIn headline says 0 to 100 million in ARR and IPO. I don't know a lot of CEOs that will do that. And I just want one day for people or my kids to be able to look back and be like, damn, that was crazy.
Yeah. I was actually in my Evernote files this morning, digging up some stuff from 2017. And then obviously as you go back, as soon as I'm looking for one thing, I start finding all this other stuff. And I remember those workshops. And I remember how I used to present those topics. And wow, that thinking has really evolved in these last 4 or 5 or 6 years. And just, I kind of got lost in the Evernote files. I wasn't actually doing the thing I was there to do, but I was just enjoying that sort of mapping of my own journey with our company and the concepts and the workshops and all the stuff we do. So I can appreciate that. It
gets deep when you go do that introspective. Yeah. Like, it's so funny you did that. I did that like 3 days ago. Same thing. I was like looking for something. Then I found an old journal. I was writing down my goals. And then I found a goal journal because I write down my goals every day. And I'm like, man, I saw one where it was like, oh, if I could just get to $1 million in ARR, my life would change forever. And then like I was flying through the pages and I saw one that's like, oh, if you could just do 10 million in ARR, your life would be changed forever. And I'm like, damn, like all these goals that I set, we hit. And, then that spiraled into like, well, shit, like I got to keep going way big with the goals because it seems like every time we set those goals, those intentions and manifestations, and then do whatever it takes to make them happen, they become a reality.
And especially down in the down times, or if you have some dark moments or tough weeks and you find a journal like that and you realize like, man, my goal 8 years ago was just to get to $1 million in revenue. And now that's like, I'm just trying to get like $1 million a week in revenue, and as you realize like, wow, like back then, if I would have told myself 8 years ago that here I am today, like, how would I feel about that? You'd feel amazed. So it's good to see the progress, but it's most important sort of when you have those down cycles, because we all have the ups and downs.
It's crazy to think like $1 million a year was the goal, and now it's literally like I got to get to $1 million a day, and how do I do that? And not for me, right? When people pay attention, people pay in results, so that's like, I know, oh gosh, if we can do $1 million a day, 265 days in a year, that's 265 million. You do it all year, 365 million. I just believe like you're impacting hundreds of billions of dollars worth of people, products, families, services, companies. And the more money you make, the more service you can make and the more impact you can make, which is why, it's awesome, man.
Yeah. What I want to do, obviously, we want to spend a good bit of time talking about outbound and the importance of list building and targeting and all of the things that are necessary for a company, whether they're at 100K in revenue or 1 million or 10 million, like they've always got to keep getting to that next level. And obviously outbound is one of the best ways to do that, because you can actually go out and reach out to the people you actually know you can help. And so as a way to get there, you talked about being in that eight person team and in your townhouse running that company. I think it would be helpful context for people to hear a little bit about that transition. You went from like idea of the company and founder everything selling to then it was like probably lifting yourself up a little bit, starting to build that early team, and then getting to a place now where you're kind of running the organization and leading the big goals. So I guess like when you started thinking about the selling of the product, like what were some of the early lessons or learnings you have for founders when they have to get out there? And you have a sales background, which is unusual. Most founders have technical or product background. So like you're probably very comfortable selling, whereas most founders are technical and they're like, how do I go out and get my first customers? Can I just do product-led growth and then I don't have to actually talk to anybody? So like help people understand what it was like for you to get those first, say, 10 or 100 customers, and how did you start extracting yourself out of the founder everything piece of the sales process?
Yeah, great question, Scott. I would say it all started, when I was selling, I was put on like a performance plan for IBM because like I wasn't generating enough revenue. And then when I got sat down and put on a performance plan, I went home with my wife was making dinner. I talked about, oh my gosh, this just happened at work. She starts crying. We're already behind in debt, in money, you name it. The year before that, I shut down a company where I burned millions of dollars of my own capital from a failed startup. So it's like I already did a failed startup. Now I'm in a sales role for the first time full time at one of the biggest the biggest companies in the world. And I'm getting put on this performance plan. And then like I audited, so after the wife freaks out, the next day I'm like, how can I make more money? I audit everything that I'm doing. And I realized 60-70% of my time was wasted on endless list building and prospecting and CRM data entry. So I was like, I got to automate this. And then figured out a way with people like, oh, I'll use people to automate it. And then I used people to automate it and made a ton of money. And then I'm like, well, the people are super inefficient. How do we should just be able to build a search engine, because then I eventually went to Google and selling for Google. I was like, we should just build a search engine, and then we should just use AI like IBM Watson and combine the two and built this software to automate the number one thing that held me back from maximizing sales, maximizing income, and crushing my sales number. Now, luckily, after automating it, was able to just skyrocket my results, be 300% to quota. My life changed forever, became a millionaire in sales, you name it, from that work. So that's when I became a millionaire in sales using the software, I was like, okay, my life's changed forever. I have to go serve and help other people to do the same. When I was selling at first for IBM, it was like, I need to sell to make money to provide for my family. Then when I started making the money using this software, I was like, okay, now I got to help other people do it. So I would say when you've got conviction in the product where like it's proven for you and can be proven for other people in another niche or target market, and then you have to go validate that. So people from IBM were calling me, how the hell did you go from last place to first place? Thousands of reps. How the majority of people are 75 to 110% to quota. You're at 325% to quota. You're a millionaire in sales now, going from broke to a millionaire. How the hell did you do that? What are you doing? What are your secrets? So I just be like, oh, I've got this software that I built. I'll sell it to you. So I started selling it to my peers first. And then they bought it, which is crazy.
It's like network marketing.
Yeah, it very much in a way. Like I was actually scared at first because I'm like, before I decided to turn it into a product, it was like my secret sales weapon. Before I turned it into a product, I was like, fuck, do I really want to give my number one secret competitive advantage to other people? And that's when I had this like almost euphoria, epiphany, spiritual enlightenment, where kind of like how experts tell you if you share your expertise, like some people are afraid to share their expertise because they won't be able to sell the course, the books, the masterminds, whatever. But then other people are like, they have an abundance mindset. If you share your expertise, you'll be able to help people. That will get them interested in your products and services. And everyone needs to go to the next level. So no matter what, they want to get your content to go deeper. That's when I first learned that secret. Because I was like at a crossroads, shit, do I sell it, my secret weapon, or do I just keep it to myself? I just got hit with that abundance mindset. Give it, something good could happen. Let's help a lot of people. Let's see if we could turn this thing into a business. So the first 100 customers, so like that was it. First 10 customers, people, my peers. And then I had other competitors, which got really weird. Like, because I was selling IBM Interactive, which was digital marketing, website marketing, social media marketing, all the website development and social media marketing and digital marketing for Fortune 500 companies. Well, then you've got all these competitors, Publicis, IPP, Ogilvy, like all the largest ad agencies, ad tech companies in the world would start to reach out to me. Hey, I've heard you got this sales software. We want to try it out. And that's really how I got my first 100 customers. Now, I did screw up with the first 100, which is an awesome takeaway for anyone tuning in. And I hope this saves you a lot of money. My background was in ad tech and mainly selling to other agencies. So the problem with agencies like Seamless, we sell B2B software, sales lead software, and it's great for people that are all in on outbound. Ad agencies are all in on referrals. Like it's the last industry to get sold on outbound. They're very scared to do outbound prospecting. They're very scared to go hunting for multi-million-dollar ad deals, digital marketing deals. It's weird. So I was able to acquire my first 100 ad tech and ad agencies, but it took like I would say 5 to 7 times longer than if I would have switched my industry criteria, my ideal customer criteria. So I basically said, hey, my experience is in ad tech and ad agencies. My first 100 customers, that's all I sold to. Well, the sales cycle for that is like 180 days. Then when I switched after the first 100 customers, I switched to like B2B SaaS, finance, manufacturing. Dude, the sales cycle went to 7 days or less. So year one, it was like, yeah, you still went from 0 to millions, but then like year 2, year 3, year 4, it's 500% growth, 400% growth, 300% growth, because I picked the right ideal customer persona to sell to, and then it just skyrocketed.
Well, I mean, there's a ton of lessons in there. A couple of the key things for me as you're sharing that story is like any entrepreneur is always better to start a business while you're already employed, like to make it a side gig and then figure out, okay, is there a real business here? That's something I did here with my company as well. The bigger lesson though, as I'm listening to you is though, even though after those first, it took you 100 customers in ad tech to realize, okay, this is not our ideal customer. The fact that you did focus in on the thing that you knew was critical and probably the reason why you were able to sell those ad tech companies on the product, even though the sales cycle was long and even though it wasn't an ideal customer for you. Whereas, what we see a lot of times with early stage founders is I've got this product, it can help the finance industry and the health tech industry and the pharma industry and the telecom industry. So I'm going to try to sell to everyone because the TAM is in the, hundreds of billions of dollars. But the fact that you had that specific expertise, that like every sales call you're doing with that ad tech company probably added to the next one and the next one and the next one. And after a while, you're like, okay, now I know enough about this segment. Meanwhile, I've got money coming in, which is great to help fund the company. Now you're at a place where you can make that educated leap to a different segment. But had you tried to sell to everyone in the beginning, I suspect you probably would not have gotten those first 100 customers at the same rate. And feel free to disagree, but that's just what I see a lot of times. All right, folks, we're off and running in my conversation with Brandon, founder over at Seamless.ai. Listen, a lot of what we're talking about here in this conversation is how do you optimize? How do you maximize? How do you achieve the things that you want to achieve with your business? How do you grow to the place where you're making a huge impact? And those are conversations we have every single day with early stage, growth stage, B2B startup founders. One of the things we do here, primary focus here at Sales Qualia, is helping those early stage B2B enterprise softwares, companies and founders build a repeatable, scalable sales process. This is something Brandon and I talk more about later in this episode. And so that sales process is what is necessary to get out of survival mode, to get out of selling, like everyday selling mode, to a place where you have some repeatability, that you have a way of consistently collecting leads, consistently moving deals through the pipeline, consistently pricing and supporting and upselling your customers down the road. These are all the things that we know early stage founders need to build and they want to build for the companies in order to scale and to make the impact that they want to make with their company in their market. And so that's what we do every single day here at Sales Qualia. So if you're a early stage, growth stage, B2B tech founder, and you're looking for some help on how to think about the sales process, what does a sales playbook look like? That's a question that you have. What does it mean to have a repeatable process? What are some diagnostics or what are some metrics you can use to know if something is repeatable versus not repeatable? You just want to get a sense for like, what are some frameworks I should be following when it comes to building out that sales process here at my company? These are all the things we can help you out on with a quick conversation that we can have over the phone. I like to call them situation sessions. So we'll hop on a call, we'll talk a bit about your specific situation at your startup. From there, we can jam on a couple of quick ideas. I can share some frameworks and some other resources that will help you think through and start building out that sales process. And if you want to have some more help with doing that, then we can talk about our Sales Qualia startup selling coaching program. So first step, have that quick chat. You can shoot me an email at Scott, SCOTT, at salesqualia.com, Scott at salesqualia.com. Just in the subject line, you can type the word chat. Just tells my assistant that you want to have a quick chat. We'll know that you are emailing us to set up a call. She'll help us arrange a time over the next couple of days from the time you send that note, and we'll have a quick chat about your business and start helping you build out your repeatable, scalable sales process. So shoot me an email, Scott at salesqualia.com, subject line chat, and we'll pick it up from there. All right, that's it for now. Let's head back to my conversation with Brandon.
I think it was really smart to 6-9 months, a year, to figure out, did you pick wrong or right? Everyone can do something looking back and be like, oh, if I did this differently, I would have scaled way faster. Like, one of the things that I think about there is I made so much money as a salesperson using Seamless that I bootstrapped the company and kept all the equity at the beginning. That cost me 3 years of trying to figure out how to build Seamless, because I kept hiring engineers. We tried to build it for a year. We would fail. Hire more engineers because the engineers would quit. We'd build it for a year. Then it would fail. Then they would quit. So I burned like 2.5, 3 years making a ton of money using the product that I built. But then what I realized was I wanted to own all the equity. And that cost me probably 3 years of development, where if I would have given up more equity up front at the beginning, I would have brought on the right tech co-founders who could have nailed it from the start versus like trying to pay people. You can pay people and that's great, but tech co-founders, like if you're just doing it with money, they're not going to stick through the shitstorm. The first few years is the hardest in the world for any startup. I don't wish it upon anyone. And you need skin in the game to really survive and thrive. And if I could go back in time, I don't know if I would have changed the ad tech thing, the ad tech targeting. I would have now, right? Like if you asked me again if I could start back over, I wouldn't have targeted ad tech. I would have targeted B2B SaaS. And then also if I could start all over again, I'd give up equity early to bring in my Austin, to bring in my Rick, to bring in some of my top partners now who built Seamless to serve, I think the platform's generated 31 billion in revenue for our customers, right? But shit, how much could we have done,
right,
years prior?
So the last question on this, and then I want to dive into the outbound and list building strategies. So, you've got these first 100 customers, then you start moving into the B2B SaaS. Like, as you mentioned, like you're the one selling the software on a one-off basis, first to your own peers, and then the ad tech, and then eventually SaaS. When did you know it was time to give up the selling? Like there was a certain amount of that selling that you did out of necessity because you were the company. But then there's also a point in time where you realize, like, I'm actually, just like with the equity thing, like me being too involved and having too much ownership is probably slowing us down. Was there a moment or a specific inflection point where you're like, okay, I got to get more people involved? And had you gotten them involved sooner, it might not have worked? Was there something, some kind of signal or some kind of specific event where you're like, okay, this is when I got to get out of founder everything sales and into founder led and eventually founder less selling?
Yeah, interesting question. For me and our journey, it was all about just taking on bigger goals. So, I went from like 4 demos a day to 8 demos a day to 15 demos a day. I maxed out at about 15 to 20 demos a day. And you could only do that, like my demos were 30 minutes.
You personally
It
were
was
doing
7-minute
15 to 20
discovery.
demos a day?
So like 20 was like only a few days because that's just crazy. But I was personally doing 15 demos a day. My chief revenue officer now, we both were doing 10, 15 demos a day at one point. And I'll get into when I brought him on. But it's really about like, okay, if I'm doing 10 to 15 demos a day, they were 30 minutes long. It was like 7-minute discovery, 7-minute presentation, 7-minute Q&A pricing, next steps, and then 7 minutes for just extra time to close, to follow up, to address objections, you name it. Like we had the process down, because you have to. If you're doing 15, you got to figure out what's that repeatable, scalable, predictable sales, discovery, demo, pitching, closing, follow-up, Salesforce process, right? But when I was doing 15, it was like, okay, if my average deal size is 10K and I close at 25%, let's just call it 10. Okay, 10 demos a day, that means I could close 2.5 deals. That means I could bring in 25,000 in ARR a day times 265 days. So I think when you realize like, okay, I've got this process down, the conversion rates are pretty dialed in, the more revenue that you want to bring in, the more people you have to add.
Yeah.
And it's so funny, like I interview all these people and it drives me fucking insane when I interview people and they're like, I want to be a manager. I want to lead people. It's like, I don't even understand what that means. Leading and managing is a requirement to just doing more work. So if I wanted to do $1 million in ARR, I know I did it as the top AE, and then I had to bring on SDRs to book the appointments for the 10 to 15 appointments a day. So out of necessity, it went from me doing the prospecting and pitching to then finding other people. Mike Hopkins is my chief revenue officer. He came in, commission only, $25 a month, SDR, no salary. So he quit his high-paying insurance job, comes in making $25 an appointment. He's booking 10 to 20 appointments a day through inbound and through outbound. So he is my only SDR, and then he's filling up my calendar. Then like we added another SDR and another SDR, and then once my calendar was, so it really became like scaling a team and going from you being the founder only salesperson to a massive team was a product of required like going after a bigger number. It wasn't like, oh, I woke up one day and I want to manage a shitload of people. Like that makes no sense. Like I never woke up one day and I'm like, oh, we've got 400 people. I want to one day lead and manage 400 people. Like, no, 400 people is a requirement for a $7,500 million company. Okay, and then if I want to do $1 billion, okay, 1,000 employees is going to be required. Like the more money you want to make and the more people you want and AEs and all these SDRs, it was like, okay, Brandon, you get out of sales and into management. So then I was doing VP of sales while doing product, strategy, technology, fundraising. It took me, honestly, poor Mike Hopkins, because I was a sales expert, sales leader, sales performer. So like your domain expertise is the thing that will be the hardest for you to give up. So every other department that I led, because I started leading everything, the one department that took me forever to give up was sales. I think it took me 2 years to give up being the head honcho at sales and letting Mike run it fully.
Wow.
2 to 3 years.
Wow.
Now, every other department, it was like find the expert, still be involved, then roll. Like second department is marketing. Because like that's our brand, that's my brand.
Sure.
That's like, so it was like sales, it took 3 years, a year and a half, and I'm still involved in marketing with JP, my marketing genius and his amazing team. But the goal though, the way that I think about it is I want to be the strategic operator out of all day to day. And I think like when you do that, right, almost 100% there, and I just have like maybe 1 or 2 more gaps. And then you can focus on really like acquisitions, new products, new markets, international markets, new offices. It's crazy the transformation that you go to from 1 employee to 500. It's crazy.
Well, that whole transition story, obviously there's a lot of lessons in there as well. I think the one for me is that you were doing 15, 20 demos in some days, and that you had this thing, like even just the fact you're like 7 for this, 7 for this, 7 for this, and then a little buffer. And then we move to the next one. Like that's, I think, the piece that too many founders forget. Like you can't scale what you don't have. So like you knew this process, you had the script, you had the leads coming in, and then and only then did you know it's time to bring in somebody to help you with sales, as opposed to like, gosh, like, I don't know, we need to grow sales. Let me go hire people and then have them figure it out. Like, in fact, you were so tightly knit with that whole process. Like that was what allowed you to scale it, is because you could just say, hey, do this thing in exactly 7 minutes and then do this in 7 minutes. And if you go off the script, that's on you, right? Because I know this works because I'm the one that's been doing this at 25% conversion rate. So yeah. That's a critical lesson for
what's cool about being broke. Like I had to do that because we were broke. We were a broke startup that no one wanted to give money to. So like out of necessity, I was like, okay, I'm going to sell the shit out of this thing out of necessity. Now, what was great about that, and then also because we built a product that's got emails and cell phones for everyone in the world and automates list building, so that helped us get appointments really, really fast. So I had to figure out like, okay, how do I architect my Salesforce instance to eliminate clicks, eliminate all the bullshit? Because I've got like 2 minutes to update Salesforce, create the next task, create the opportunity. I've got 24 minutes to do discovery, demo, objection handling, Q&A, closing, contract sending. And what that allowed us to do was just really cut out the bullshit and figure out what's the most efficient way to get things done. Now the problem is, I bet you my organization is so inefficient across so many different areas because everyone thinks that something, when you get to this scale, all the operators and the leaders think that something is going the way that they think it's going. But in reality, there are so many tiny little breaks everywhere that cause the organization to be inefficient. Even at our own organization, I know what's going on right now, that the only way to really fix it is to like audit and get back in. Kind of like Undercover Boss. If you've ever seen that show, Undercover Boss.
Yeah. I watched the show. Sure.
Yeah. They'll go in there. They'll see all this shit that's wrong. And that's what we got to do.
Well, cool, man. I want to dive into specifically around Outbound itself, right? Because like you said, like obviously your platform is ideal for list building and generating those outbound emails and systems. So help me understand it for people listening. Like, first of all, I guess one question I always get is like, why outbound? Like outbound feels spammy. Like I just want to rely on inbound. I don't want to feel like I'm batching and blasting people. So that's sort of one question we get a lot, like why outbound? And then number two, well, if yes to outbound, what are a couple of key practices around like the targeting piece of outbound, the messaging piece of outbound, some of the sequencing? So a little bit more strategic, why outbound, and then a little bit more tactical. So I'm just going to let you riff and I'll get out of the way.
No, this is an awesome question, Scott. So number one, you could build a list of every single ideal customer, every single person that desperately needs your products and services, and then go sell to them one-to-one. Like, if you want to be able to take a message, take a product, take a service, and get in the hands of every single person in the world that desperately needs them right now today, outbound is the only way to do it. So marketing, what's great, and I did marketing for a decade for IBM and selling for Google. The ads are all over the place. Like, you could try to target it to the right person based on some bullshit interest that they liked on Facebook or LinkedIn. But the reality is those ads are going to so many different people that are highly unqualified. What's the data that I know about this? My cost to acquire a customer in outbound and sales is 1/5 the cost of marketing. My ROAS, my return on ad spend, and my return on investment is 5x in sales and outbound than it is in marketing. So let's just say it cost me $1,000 to acquire a customer in outbound selling. It is $5,000 to $10,000 in marketing. Why? Because Google and Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter, Yeah, they kind of care that your ads are shown to the right people, but they don't give a shit because guess what? You give them $1, they have to show it to X amount of people per 1,000 impressions, and their goal is to show it to as many people as possible, as fast as possible. So it could go to Scott, who may be a potential ideal customer for Seamless.ai, but then it could go to my dad or my uncle, who's a construction worker, who is on TechCrunch looking at some bullshit article that he got a random ad for because it said Elon Musk buys Twitter. Dude, that construction work, my uncle, the construction worker who's broke, is not buying Seamless, is not buying your services. Then like Sally, the neighbor, because she knows my uncle and she's broke, she's seeing the ad and she's stay at home. Like the ads and the marketing is just all over the place, highly inefficient. So if you want to build a list of every single person in the world that desperately needs your products and services and sell to them, market to them, one-to-one direct, Outbound is the fastest, the best, the smartest, the most strategic way to do it. You could understand the persona's problems, challenges, pains, struggles. You could understand their goals, their dreams, desires. You could do that per persona and then write messaging, multi-channel, emails, calls, text, social, video to those people, one-to-one. And the conversion rates too, by the way, on Outbound versus advertising bullshit, the conversion rates on Outbound selling, and I spend money on both, by the way. Like I spend millions of dollars on ads. Like I think we're up to $1 million a month or whatever on ads, maybe even more now. And then I spend millions on Outbound. Why do I spend way more on Outbound a month than I do on inbound? Because Outbound makes us more money. It's the most effective and most efficient channel to acquire a new customer.
Well, I mean, like I almost felt like you were evangelizing there. I mean, I could tell like the passion that you have for this just ratcheted up a whole nother level. I always think of it as you start this company, you desire to help people. Like that's why you started the company. You built this product to solve a problem, assumably, right? Like, don't you have almost a moral responsibility to go try to find the people that you know probably have this problem? Like, you're almost like, why wouldn't you go do this? Like, why would you want to just sit here and wait for them to come to you? Because it means you're just letting them suffer with the problem. Like you owe it to them. They need you to reach out to them. So I'm on board with you on that.
That's why thing. I think I got turned up, right? Because there's so many companies right now that are getting destroyed by the recession, that are laying hundreds or thousands of people off, that aren't generating the revenue, and they're still relying on marketing and ad spend and random impressions marketed all over the place to random people who are not their ideal customers, and they won't make the sales, they won't crush their number, they won't flood the calendar with back-to-back appointments on the hour every hour. And if we don't take action, if Scott, you and I don't level it up and really drill in, these companies and these people could be out of a job or out of business. And that's why, that moral obligation to say, guys, like, go all in on Outbound right now. In economies of recession, where like you don't have the ability to spend and waste a lot of money, like advertising is good, but it burns a lot of money because it's so inefficiently targeted to people. And I worked for the companies that would target the people. Like I'm an insider trader for these companies to tell you that marketing, digital marketing ads is inefficient and ineffective and will burn your money way more than it returns compared to Outbound. And we've got a moral obligation to communicate that and help everyone out there leverage Outbound to, flood their revenue, flood their pipeline.
So what somebody, okay, now they're listening. They're like, okay, Brandon, you sold me. I'm in on Outbound. What are a couple, first couple steps that are necessary for somebody to start doing Outbound effectively? Because there's lots of wrong ways to do it. It's like, oh, okay, I'm going to do Outbound and I'm going to go buy a list, or I'm going to go hire some agency to do the Outbound for me. So now they're like, okay, I'm doing Outbound, but it obviously doesn't work the way it could if it was run efficiently. So what are some things that people that are spinning up an Outbound system or campaign or whatever you want to call it, what should they be sure to do, or what are some things they should make sure not to do?
Yeah, the way, and I'm going to share with you everything that we've learned documenting our journey from 0 to 100 million in ARR, and this is just our perspective. Number one, you can't sell anything to anyone without the list. we were able to grow 300 to 500% every year from launch till today because we went all in on build the list, sell the list, build the list, sell the list. I believe the fastest way to grow your business and transform your sales is with the list. And then the only way to do that is with Seamless. And what I would say, step one, define your ideal customer persona. Step two, build that list of your ideal customer persona. And the riches are in the niches. So really think about what is my niche? Who are the people that I need to sell to? How can I make this super targeted? So when I send that email, make that call, drop that voicemail, it lights them up like the 4th of July, like Christmas tree, whatever you celebrate, it just lights them up so that they respond to you and book that appointment or whatever you're selling, right? And that's why I say, hey, pick a niche and get rich, build a list, and then write your scripts. When I talk about writing your scripts, the 7 to 30 day outbound sales campaign. And again, I learned this before I got into sales from marketing. Marketers, the top Fortune 500, Fortune 100 marketers in the world, they never have this debate. This channel they're not like, oh, PPC is better than display ads. Oh, display ads is better than SEO. SEO is better than content marketing. Marketers don't have the debate on which channel is better. Yet the sales industry, everyone's arguing sales calling is better than emailing, is better than social selling, is better than this. I'm like, guys, this is just stupid. Don't think like that. Use all the channels and leverage a multi-channel prospecting approach, just like marketers do. They leverage all the impressions, all the ads, all the ways to get their message out into the world, and then write your different campaigns, your scripts for each of these channels across a 30-day campaign calendar, 7-day campaign calendar, you name it. Every sales cycle, every product's different. If it's high volume, low ticket, you're going to have a shorter sales campaign, maybe 7 to 14 days. If you got a long sales cycle like Google, it was 7 to 14. IBM Interactive, it was I got a 6-month calendar. And I'm going to work a Fortune 500 VP of digital marketing over the course of a year. So it just depends on what you sell. Create that campaign calendar and start writing your scripts and value propositions. I believe in when you're writing your messaging, you have to believe in making deposits. It's all about, I believe in a 10-to-1 deposit, which means for every dollar I want from a customer, I have to deposit $10 into their bank account. So Seamless is basically $100 a month. To get $1,000 out of Scott, I have to give him $10,000 in value. And this is just a 10-to-1 deposit ROI that I just personally believe in, and I preach to our team. Deliver 10-to-1 in deposits to your prospects. And luckily, when you do that, okay, I may tell Scott, he wrote a book, right? His scaling book, his startup scaling book. I may teach him, I may say, hey, I published these 3 different books. This is how I became the #1 bestsellers. Here's a cheat sheet. Or I may run into a startup that's trying to buy Seamless, and they're like, oh, I need a coach or consultant. I'm like, oh, I got my guy, Scott Sambucci. Hit him up. He's in San Fran. He'll hook you up. That's a deposit. That deposit could be worth 10 to 100 grand. I introduced someone to Scott. He lands his customer, and I introduced him to an author. Okay, now I've made tens of thousands of dollars worth of deposit. When he's on the market for list building software or lead gen software, I'm probably going to be at the top of the list because the amount of deposits that I've made are far greater than anyone else out there on the market. So I always think about what value in deposits can I deliver? And then you got to figure out also multi-channel deposits, not only multi-channel prospecting, but maybe one deposit doesn't resonate well with Scott. So for me, what do I do personally? I love sales. I love entrepreneurship. I love health. I love reading, right? So if someone was trying to sell to me, the best way to sell to me would be okay, my goal is to get us to 100 million ARR and IPO. What are some secrets on that last 25% journey to get to 100 million ARR and IPO? Share that. Share with me about meditation secrets and sleeping secrets. It's something that I'm trying to master. Share with me about publishing my 4th book faster. Share with me about this. Share with me about that. Those different deposits across my goals, because everyone's got professional goals, personal goals, health goals, wealth goals. I try to give deposits across all of those, not just work.
So something that's really, and I hope people that are listening pick this up. Like we're talking about, yes, you have to build your list. Yes, you have to have these sequences over whether it's 7 to 10 days or 6 months. Everything you just shared about the deposits was all human. It was all, hey, I'm going to help Scott. I'm going to add value to Scott. It wasn't just this robotic, okay, set up a 25 touch email sequence that goes over 3 months time, sprinkle in some LinkedIn DMs and cold call a few times, and then you'll get customers. Like everything you said was the antithesis of what most people perceive to be outbound, because they perceive it to be, it's spammy. I have to batch and blast a big list. I have to spray and pray and hope if I send in 100 emails, I'll get 2 meetings. What you just said was everything that's the antithesis of that. And I think there's a big disconnect for people that they feel like, well, I don't have time to do the high value stuff because I just got to build my pipeline. I just got to get meetings on the book. I got to get to a place where I have 10 demos a day, the way that Brandon did. But yet here you are saying like, no, outbound, yes, it's a system, it's a strategy, but selling means as part of that outbound is making sure you're making that personal connection.
Yeah, 100%. What's cool about when we talked about the list building approach, the list building secrets, when you pick a niche to get rich and you build your list and your niche and you've got your ideal customer personas, their biggest pain points, their desires, their struggles, their dreams, their challenges, their goals, right? You can figure out, because you went laser, I can figure out assets and deposits. I would put you in the center, and we have typically a whiteboard in here, where I'd put you in the center. Okay, Scott, founder, sales consulting company. Okay, well, if I build a list of founders of sales consulting companies, what are their goals? What are their dreams? Like, what things can I deposit to that specific group of people? And then I could put a dollar amount to it. And the goal is to have a value ladder dollar amount. I want small deposits and I want really large deposits. Like, that's why probably like Scott, we write the book, like, oh, we could give our life's experience for $10 to $20. It's like, that's a massive deposit for stupid ROI. Like that $10 book should be honestly tens of thousands of dollars, but whatever, we're making that deposit. Okay. And then what could I offer, for free or whatever, that's worth $50, that's worth $100, that's worth $1,000, that's worth $10,000, you name it. I recommend, like, when you pick a niche to get rich, you can really identify the value ladder and the offers and the deposits you can make to a large list of people who are exactly the same title, same persona, same problem, same goals, same dreams. And then that way you could do mass deposits at scale, mass personalization at scale. You can talk about like one pain point for one message, one deposit for another message, one goal and dream and desire on one message. So what's cool is when you pick a niche, you can really hyper scale your prospecting without having to do it one-to-one, highly custom every single time. However, the more custom that you can get with people, the better. Like, I'm obsessed with speed reading. Like, you can't use that with every founder of a tech company because some of them won't give a shit. I'm whole food plant-powered vegan. I'm probably a 1% whole food plant-powered vegan out of all the tech founders. Like, I do all these different things to where if you drop some stuff to help me do them better, you would catch my interest, but you could use the macro themes and then prospect and outreach for those macros.
Well, dude, I know you could talk about this stuff for hours or days or even months. And I also want to be respectful of your time and your schedule. So first of all, thank you for making time to join the show. I know there's all kinds of places where people can reach you. There's LinkedIn, there's your podcast, there's your books, there's the Seamless.ai website. Like, if there was one place that you would ask people to go, what would that one place be?
Yeah, I would say, look, I drop a daily newsletter with secrets. Highly recommend getting our newsletter, getting our software for free at Seamless.ai. If you type in the referral code podcast, or, you could do Scott Simbucci, you could do startup selling, we'll make sure that gets tagged to you. We've got a special $500 gift where we give you 500 credits for tuning into Scott's podcast and startup selling.
Cool.
So make sure when you sign up for the newsletter and the free software, you're going to get $500 in free leads. So just go to Seamless.ai and we'll deliver value. And then our ultimate goal, what I want you to do is follow us on social and all that jazz, because we want to give you, I want you, like, our goal, everything that we do, the deposit that I want to make is helping you make $1 million in sales. When you make $1 million in sales with our software and with our secrets, we ship you this $1,000 President's Club award. And then we have a big President's Club event My goal for you, for everyone that follows us, we want to get 1 million people into the $1 million club. And that's our mission. We've created 31 billion so far in revenue for our customers. And, it's not enough. There's a lot of people out there who need more time with their family, who need more money to provide for their kids to survive this recession. And, give us a follow and we're here to help.
Dude, I love that. 31 billion. That's like the GDP of a pretty good sized company or a pretty good sized country.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've got the data. I get the data emailed me every day. So our users have researched over 807 million leads in Seamless since we launched, 16,150,000 appointments held, 3.23 million deals won, and now it's 32.3 billion in revenue. We've got 15,247 six-figure club winners, 4,700 seven-figure club winners, and 538 figure club winners. So I want to see 100,000 people into the 6, 7, 8 figure club. We're not there yet. Then I want to see 1 million people into the club. We're not there yet, but every day. And that would be my closing advice to everyone tuning in, set a massive goal, but celebrate the everyday wins. This shit is a long game. You win by putting in the work every day, small wins, repeated day in, day out, regardless of how you feel. Always have hope, always be positive, never give up, always be coachable. Hungry to improve 1%. You improve 1% a day, that's 37x by the end of the year. And then you got to work hard. And lastly, you got to do whatever it takes. If you do whatever it takes in all the things that we just covered, shit, you can do anything. So start scaling.
Dude, I love it, man. I love the energy and the enthusiasm. So yeah, check out Seamless.ai. Go over there. You can just type in podcast as the promo code for that $500 bonus of free credits. Brandon, thank you again. We're going to put all of your links to LinkedIn, your books, your personal website, the company website into the show notes as well. Our team will send you out your team over a couple of pre-built posts. So as soon as we get this episode live, share it with your massive tribe. And if there's anything we do to help you out, please let us know. Thanks again for sharing your time and most importantly, your expertise, Brandon. Good to have you here.
Scott, awesome being with you today. You're a great host. Really awesome questions. And thank you so much, man. Oh, by the way, what are your top, and I don't know if you're still rolling or not, but what are your top, I'd love to hear what, you growing your business, what are your top problems, challenges, things that you're trying to overcome right now?
It's interesting. So for us, it's not a new problem. It's a problem we're continuing to refine on, which is number one, which is marketing and targeting, making sure that we're bringing in the right people, the folks that we know we can help. The more that we've done this, we've been running this program for almost a decade. Every client gives us a data point of who we know we can best help and who we know we can't help. Even though they might need the help or want our help, it doesn't mean we can help them. And so we've been working really hard on refining that so that we can make sure we're targeting the right people and bringing those right fit clients in. So marketing is a big thing we're focusing on. And then sales is always something we're working on. It's not necessarily it's not a problem. It's thinking about how do we sell to more, basically expanding the reach of startups. So talking about list building, we started looking at certain geographic kind of segments that might be in places like Austin or Chicago or Miami and saying, okay, there's startup communities there. What could we do regionally to add value to those markets? So we've talked about me going on a actual tour, a geographic tour next year.
Yeah, I want to do the same. It's funny.
Yeah. Awesome. So we're looking at picking 10 to 20 of the top, non-Silicon Valley markets and just setting up 1 or 2 day workshops with local partners and just going there and delivering the workshops that we normally charge $10,000 or $15,000 to run and just offering that to people in those communities. Because we know they can hop on Zoom and they can, watch conferences digitally and they might not be able to get to San Francisco. So why don't we bring Silicon Valley to them from a sales and process standpoint? And being in a position to be able to do that is pretty cool because now I can just go out on the road and have fun. I'm not having the day-to-day worries about the business and now being able to think creatively. And so that's, again, it's not necessarily a problem, but I think it's more like an opportunity we want to take advantage of.
It's awesome, man. Well, let me know how I can help. I'll think about those things. When you talk about marketing, one of the things that we've seen work really well is building the ideal customer lists that you would go after in sales and then loading those up as custom audiences in all the marketing platforms is just a great way to cut the wasted ad spend and go one-to-one. Now, you still have to make sure the problem with the ad platforms is if the audience is too small, they won't advertise to them. But like if I were you, I would do custom audiences. And then I would also do anyone that liked, 500 startups, not TechCrunch, shit, what is it? Techstars,
Techstars, YC. Oh,
yeah, like
for sure.
anyone that liked those Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, I've got ads going to those founders, you name it. So should be good. You'll be able to blow it up.
Yeah, it's a fun time to be. I mean, we spent a lot of time this past 2 years thinking about the delivery model to effectively scale delivery in a way to make sure that we can support more clients. Because the last thing we want is a situation where we bring in new clients and then on the back end we can't support them, and then you get churn and unhappy people. And the world that we live in, like it's different if you somebody buys a pair of tennis shoes and you're like, those shoes didn't really work out for me. Like these are startups with 12 months of runway at best, and they're coming to us to help them solve their selling and sales processes challenges. And it's like they can't afford to be wrong on how they're spending their time and their money. And so we take that really seriously. So the last thing we want is for somebody to come in and feel like, well, I thought I was getting this, but I actually got that. And now I've spent 6 months working with this team. And while it was okay, it wasn't what I needed. And now that 6 months could be everything between their ongoing survival or having to do a major pivot or worse. So we really focused on delivery so that as we start to do some of the bigger marketing and sales stuff, that we feel comfortable bringing them into the system that we have.
I love it. Well, man, it was great. An honor. Thank you. Grateful to be part of this show. Shoot us all the once you have the raws and everything cut up or not cut up, our team will start dropping social stuff. We won't release the full one until you tell us to, but I'll start marketing your show right when we get the assets, and I look forward to it. Cool. I got to jump to 2 p.m., but thanks so much for the time, man.
All right, Brandon.
Great seeing you again. Cheers.
Good. See ya. All right, folks, listen, thank you again, as always, for listening to this Startup Selling Show. Just like with Brandon, he's got big goals, big aspirations to impact hundreds of millions of people, impact billions of dollars in revenue. That's the same for us here. And, one of the things you could do to help us out is just with this podcast show. If you could leave us a review, if you subscribe to the podcast, and then you could refer this show over to a friend or 10. Say, hey, I just listened to this episode of the Startup Selling Show. I think you'll want to check it out. Podcasts are still growing. The number one way to grow a podcast is still viral. Still friends telling friends about a show that they listen to. I know myself, when I look at the podcast I listen to on my podcast app, every single one of those podcasts are on my podcast library because somebody told me, hey, you ought to listen to the show. It's really good. I think you'll like it. It's the same with us and our show. So please help us out. Leave us a review, subscribe to this podcast, tell a friend or 10, so we can also continue to make the impact that we want to make for people just like you. So that's it for now. Again, if you haven't already, send me an email, scott@salesquality.com. Just grab your mobile phone, open up your email map, scott@salesquality.com. Just type the subject line chat into the email, hit send. That'll go to my inbox. My assistant will look at that, make sure that we get a time scheduled so we can talk about your situation and what it takes to build a repeatable, scalable sales process for your business. All right, that's it for now. Until the next show, we'll talk to you then. See ya.